Another exciting week in the world of the fraud world, and we've got plenty of stuff to talk about. But how are you doing, Jeff? What's happening?
I am doing great. I'm just dodging lightning bolts over here. I've got a series of thunderstorms going over my head in the swamps of North Florida here. So if I blink out, that's why I got struck by lightning.
Well, let's hope you don't get struck by lightning, but that's okay. We've got plenty of other stuff to cover when it comes to lightning stories happening, because yet again we're in the cycle of endless fraud proceedings that we've got to go over, and it just keeps getting worse. So let's go ahead and get started, man. What do you have for us first?
Yeah, so this is a story that hit last week while we were on the air, but it's one of those things that we didn't have time to talk about. But this is the first thing right off the top is the ICE proceedings against Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. This is spectacular stuff. This is long overdue. This woman who has been shown basically to have lied on her immigration status forms, somehow got herself elected as a congresswoman, and now ICE is actually going to investigate her for her actual citizenship eligibility, which is fantastic.
Well, I just find anything to do with Ilhan Omar, the pirate in Congress. I find anything to do with her just
the Somali
fascinating.
pirate.
Yeah, the one Somali pirate that we allowed to get into our Congress. I just everything that comes out about this woman, I don't know how she hasn't had some sort of major ethics violation, especially after the improper the financial stuff that was covered extensively over the past year or so. I mean, even though, I know somebody that actually went and looked for her winery and all that, the supposed winery that she had that was worth $30 million, that, there was nothing there, and it was owned by a bunch of Somalis, and they didn't even let the person in the building, which is just, of course it was. I mean, of course it was. I mean, like, why wouldn't it be? Yeah, because of course. But the fact that they're actually going after her for ICE proceedings, at least someone is looking at this, because the concept that she married her brother and all this stuff, like, really? I mean, just I don't know how we allow this stuff to go as far as we had, but immigration fraud is a real problem. But Trump and his team, people keep saying that he hasn't done a whole lot, but you go look at how many people have had their visas revoked and all sorts of other things that have happened. No, I wouldn't say that's the case.
So, Walter, I was just searching Twitter to see if there was any update on the Ilhan Omar story from last week. Guess what just happened like 11 minutes ago?
What's that?
Police raid home of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's son as guns and ammunition are seized.
What?
This is according to the Daily Mail. This just happened or just dropped.
As
of 12:46 Eastern time. Police in Minnesota reportedly raided the apartment of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's son and seized firearms before arresting his roommate. Law enforcement sources told Alpha News that a search warrant was carried out at the home of Omar's son Adnan on Tuesday night. According to the outlet, they recovered guns and ammunition from the home and arrested his roommate Abdul Rahman Abdi. Earlier that day, the city's police department said in a statement to the Daily Mail that they conducted a traffic stop and cited Abdi for no proof of insurance and no license. The department said that Abdi was released at the scene and the vehicle was in the process of being impounded when a firearm was found inside. Officers later tracked Abdi to an address on Marquette Avenue where they arrested him without incident.
So,
nice company these guys keep.
I mean, so her sister is involved in the Feeding Our Future fraud stuff, right? There's also another story of some Medicaid fraud that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and now her son is wrapped up with a guy who's arrested on gun charges.
Right. What? Well, not only that, but he's obviously an illegal alien because he doesn't have a license or insurance, right? So I'll bet you dollars to donuts he doesn't have his immigration paperwork in order, right? Of course. And so now he's arrested, or he was pulled over for no license, no insurance. They found a gun while impounding his car. How did he get the gun? This goes to the Second Amendment, where law-abiding citizens are the ones being targeted when criminals are the ones that are getting the guns on the black market. So it's not the guns' fault. It's the fault of the criminals that are obtaining these guns. As I understand it, Minneapolis has some pretty strict gun laws, right? So how is he able to get that gun if they have waiting periods and all the rest, like most blue states do? So, I mean, it's just it's a perfect story wrapped up in a bow for conservative media.
I mean, but really, the fact that this is another story of someone in her family arrested on something else. I mean, just you're probably right. He probably is illegal. I mean, why wouldn't he be? At this point,
you have to assume that these days, right? I mean, you can't assume that they're actually legitimate at this point.
No, I mean, I don't think so. And why would they be? I guarantee you that he is illegal. I mean, that's got to be what's happening. So that's yet another family member of hers. I mean, every person in her family is like this. I mean, what is going on here? The fact that we can't seem to do anything against these people that just run amok and don't have any rule. That's amazing. 11 minutes ago that drops. So that's just,
man, I'll tell you what, here's another. It's a perfect story, but here's another one. Look at all these. You just search Ilhan Omar on X, and it's a cornucopia. Here's another one from yesterday from Newsmax. I don't know if you saw this one. Meals Act scrutiny. A federal magistrate judge found that pandemic era waivers backed by Ilhan Omar left a federal child nutrition program vulnerable to fraud, according to a 2024 ruling.
No.
So there she is again, wrapped up in some sort of a fraud scheme.
Everything about it is so, it's just is there anything she's done that isn't related to fraud? I guess that's the easier question at this point. Is she done anything that doesn't have a connection to some fraudster?
Has she ever told the truth?
Yeah. Has she ever done anything? I mean, this is the member of the squad, right? The untouchable, the next generation. I mean, this is what you get with the new DSA types. This is where this all leads. I mean, all of these people are fraudulent. I mean, and you're not, I can't be surprised by it, really. You look at what they've done and how they've moved things around. Every aspect of Ilhan Omar's career seems to have been centered around trying to make herself rich. And then when they caught her, they just said that she's worth nothing. She's worth like 10 grand or something. I mean, it's like,
Are you trying to tell me that Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley are pure as the driven snow and not involved?
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're absolutely pure as the driven snow. I'm sure they're not involved in any schemes whatsoever. I mean, there's already other cases of other other reps being arrested on fraud stuff. I think we've even got something about that this week. I mean, isn't there someone in Massachusetts that was charged for
pandemic? Let's talk about that one. Yeah. This Massachusetts state rep Paulino and Lawrence, Massachusetts Mayor DePena indicted for pandemic loan fraud. So federal officials in Massachusetts are scheduled to announce the indictment of state rep Francisco Paulino and Lawrence Mayor Brian DePena for pandemic loan fraud and money laundering. Massachusetts mayor accused of using $1.5 million in pandemic funds for campaign. This actually happened also to the I believe it's the Democratic minority leader in the House, the legislature of Virginia, Louise Lucas. If I remember correctly, she had something like that going on. She was using pandemic money to fund her marijuana dispensary business. There's all kinds of stuff like that. So it really is a culture of fraud that has taken root in the federal government for decades, right? But you get to the Obama administration, then the Biden administration, this stuff starts getting accelerated. They put it on steroids and a growth program, and they bulk up the fraud, and now they're fraud bodybuilders.
I mean, really, it's amazing how fast it seems. I guess it's something that, because it's been going on for so long, which is something that we've talked about, how extensive this has been happening. But I guess it's because it's been going on for so long that it finally just hit a breaking point when someone actually started looking again. I mean, we already covered the fact that the Biden administration, in one of our recent episodes, that the Biden administration, according to RFK, completely removed most of the integrity program, right? So that most of the people that were even in charge of looking to make sure that there wasn't fraud, that they reduced that department. And we claimed that was because they
Right.
were trying to save money. That must have been the reason that they did that.
Fiscal
They're saving
conservatism.
money. They're being fiscally responsible by reducing the integrity
Right.
department. I mean, that's the one department that should never be reduced, but apparently there were 6 people working in it. So you can't be shocked that almost every single person that figures out how to game the system did so. I mean, this is something that, and this goes back to something we talked about a couple weeks ago with the high trust society. I mean, yeah, we're not a high trust society anymore. That's pretty
Yep.
much clear. That's pretty much
Right.
clear that we're not. I mean, and I think they're absolutely accurate to say that because, I mean, if you've got state reps, I mean, we also had, remember, there was the Democrat rep, the U.S. rep that got caught for the FEMA funds that she was stealing, right? So
That's right.
she embezzled something like $700,000 in FEMA funds. I think that was
Mhm.
one out of New Jersey, right? Or maybe it was in Georgia. I can't remember. There's too
It's hard
many
to
of
keep
them.
track, man.
It is hard to keep track. It's something we're hopefully going to be able to fix that soon. We'll be able to make sure everybody can track this stuff. But this
I'll
is
tell you what, though, this is really goes back to the Trump effect too, right? It took a huge personality because everybody's complained for decades. The Washington's corrupt, and the swamp is undefeated, and there's nothing we can do to root out fraud. And we know it's happening, but what are we going to do about it? Throw up our hands. I think back to President George W. Bush, for instance, who tried to do some stuff on this, tried to fix entitlements, tried to do some fixes here and there, but it just wasn't able to really get there. It took somebody as audacious as Trump to just call it out and say, this is BS. And what are we doing paying for all this crap? And to bring in somebody like an Elon to run Doge, right? Elon doesn't give a crap what anybody says, right? You have to have those kinds of unique personalities to just cut through the crap and the doublespeak and the swamp culture and say, what are you guys doing? What are we paying for?
Yeah, that would be that is a good way to look at it. Is that finally it took people to stand up and have larger than life personalities to finally get someone to pay attention to it. And a lot of people, there's endless complaints that people have about the Trump administration. But
Right.
to me, you can have lots of complaints. Sure, there's some things I wish were happening. There's lots of things I wanted to get done. But at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that for the first time in my lifetime, we're actually talking about the problems in government spending. I mean, we're
Right.
actually talking about it. We're not just saying, well, what do we do? It's just there. I mean, what do you mean it's just there? How about we actually try and fix it? I mean, that would be the way that you should look at it. And it's the first administration in my lifetime, I don't know if in your lifetime, that anybody's ever done this. No one's looked at
The
this
only
stuff.
the only thing I can really even compare it to is the Tea Party movement that tried to attack it from the opposite direction. Right. The problem was too much spending. It was out of control budgeting. It was too much taxes, taxed enough already. Right. Which is absolutely true. But it was successful to an extent. The swamp fought back. The Uniparty fought back and eventually got control of the Tea Party movement. But that was an existential threat to the swamp. What Trumpism has done is kind of taken that Tea Party model and attacked it from the other side. Right? It's not just we spend too much and we tax too much, although that is part of what he's saying. Don't look at the federal budget because that's not exactly living up to fiscal conservatism either. But the point being, though, if we root out all this fraud and all this spending that's going to places that we never wanted it to go to, and it's being stolen by illegal immigrants or even American citizens, whoever's stealing our money, it needs to be stopped. And so it's attacking the same problem from a different side, but it's the same kind of overwhelming personality and overwhelming movement that we're in the middle of right now.
Well, I think, a lot of people have wondered why, a lot of fiscal conservatives get mad at Trump because he spends too much and he tries to do this. But I think Trump has a different approach to things. And his approach is actually, it's something that people don't really pay a whole lot of attention to and don't think about. But His concept, I think, is that he believes he can grow the country out of the deficit problem, which is true, actually, if he can. If he could restore, I mean, just for an example, if he could restore our manufacturing base up to 20% of the working population, that would automatically increase our GDP so much that we would actually be out of the deficit anyway. And then if you take out all of the fraud, which we're now looking at, the GAO or GOA numbers that we have say that the estimate was $521 billion lost in fraud per year. That's just an estimate.
Per year.
Yeah, per year. I mean, that's our deficit is what is over $1 trillion. But if you start reducing the spending and actually growing the GDP, then you can get out of the fraud problem and you can fix this issue. I mean, we are the largest economy in the world by a wide margin. If we increase our economy even further and keep our growth up, then we can get out of this problem. But it's been a scenario where Trump gets so much flack for spending, but the reality is he can't stop the spending because spending is controlled by Congress.
That's
the only thing that he can do is reduce where the money goes, which is something that they've been fighting in court, and they've been fighting it endlessly. I mean, every time Trump
they cut out USAID and they got sued over it, right? So I mean, everything they try to do, they get sued over. They have not everybody in Congress is on board with the Trump agenda, right? So, if he wants to stop spending, Congress is so irrevocably broken that they can't even pass a budget. So we're not going to get control of spending that way. So where are we going to attack? There's two places we've attacked. One is, as you and I have talked about for 13 episodes now, it's the fraud and the money being stolen from federal programs. The other is through regulation. And that's something that you and I haven't talked very much about, but when you talk about the EPA getting rid of the endangerment finding, calling carbon dioxide a pollutant, and other deregulatory effects, I think, if I remember right, and forgive me if I have this figure wrong, but it's something like in the first Trump administration, he wanted to end 2 regulations for every new regulation that was passed.
Yep.
It ended up being something like, for every new regulation that was passed, they ended like 2,800 regulations. Yeah. They absolutely slashed federal regulations, and it caused the economy to boom. And that's what you're talking about, right? Is growing the economy to get us out of this spending quagmire, or this, spending too much money on interest and having a budget that's completely out of control.
Well, and we talk about we focus a lot on the fraud issue where there would like direct money being stolen, but in reality, what you're talking about, the EPA stuff, that's all fraudulent stuff too. I mean, these environmental studies that they exist, this is all another grift. We haven't even really covered it, really, but it is a grift. Right. In fact, I've actually referred to global warming is griftiest maximus, the biggest grift that has ever grift, because it never ends. It's an unsolvable problem that exists forever. I mean,
it's also unprovable, by the way.
Well, exactly. It's an unprovable, unsolvable problem. We need trillions of dollars, apparently, to solve a problem of the Earth getting hotter, maybe over the next 100 years. It's an unsolvable problem. It's an unsolvable problem and an incalculable problem because you can't figure it out. I mean, I always go back to, you look at what Gore said, right? Apparently, our ice caps were supposed to have been completely melted by now. Well, that was a lie. That didn't happen at all. In fact, they're bigger than they were then. And my favorite, if you go back, I'm sure you remember this story. I tell it all the time. Remember there was a story of a group of climate scientists who went down to Antarctica, right? And they got stuck in the ice. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Yep. They had to get icebreakers out to
they sent an icebreaker. It got stuck, so they had to send a Navy icebreaker to retrieve the scientists because, according to them, it was unnaturally too much ice. There was just too much ice there at the time. There were unexpected amounts of ice. But if you go further from that, and this is when the current AOC started rising to her fame. She claimed that the world was going to end in 12 years. I mean, how far are we into that 12-year period, Jeff? I mean,
it's 9 or 10 anyway.
Yeah, we're almost there. I mean, there's only a couple years left before the world ends from global warming.
I haven't heard her give us an update on that recently.
Yeah, I want to know a timeline. I mean, we've only got a couple months left at this point or something, right? I don't know. We should all be terrified, according to them. But it is a fraud thing.
Yeah, it's 100% fraud. There's so many different layers of fraud to it. It's maddening. The more you dig into it, the worse it gets. And I don't want to get too much into a rabbit hole on this, but I did an entire I think it was like an 8,000 word report on this for Restoration News in 2024, all of the junk science behind the climate scare. And I mean, it's from beginning to end. It's all lies and it's all made up, you know?
Well,
Um,
but it does relate to what we're doing, Jeff, because
sure,
the way that
sure.
I look at this, if you think about it for just a minute, we have now, for what we've been doing over the past few months and the building the project that we've been doing, this show, along with the big website and everything that is in the works now, this, if you really go look back, the biggest things that have been the problem is the government crony grift, right? Well, where is that bigger than in the environmental stuff? It's nowhere bigger than that, really. I mean,
No
other
doubt
than
about it.
well, maybe we're wrong about that. We thought that. I thought that for a long time, but I think actually we've now found that Medicaid is actually significantly worse than we could have ever imagined. So
Or
maybe it's both.
Medicare or
Yeah,
SNAP or Section
any of
8
the entitlement
housing
program,
or
the entitlement programs, but in terms of building the economy and getting us out of the problem, I think the deregulatory, which a lot of this is because of the end of Chevron deference, that's going to be the end of it anyway.
yes.
But
Yep.
as a result of that, now getting us out of that, and you've got to go look back, how many of these programs, these environmental studies, these environmental work groups, and all this stuff, how much do you think was funded by the government? And it was all bullshit. It was just all stuff that was set up by their friends so they could pay their buddies. We already know from, indirectly related to government fraud, which the Stacey Abrams case that they found out at the very beginning of the administration,
Yep.
where they gave a new nonprofit that had $100 in revenue, $2 billion. I mean, they just, yep, here you go, $2 billion for Stacey Abrams. Why not? I mean,
Right.
did you actually ever look into what her program was supposed to do? She was supposed to provide low income people with economically and environmentally friendly washing machines. That's what it was for. That's what
For
it's like.
$2 billion. dollars.
Yeah, for $2 billion.
You could buy everybody in America a washing machine and still have $1 billion left over.
Probably. I mean, but that's what her program was supposed to do, and they gave her $2 billion to do it. So that's the grift. That's the government
Yep.
waste, fraud, and abuse stuff that we've been talking about, and that it
Right.
exists
It's
everywhere.
structural, right? It's whether it's spending, whether it's regulatory, whether it's rule making, whatever that is, right? It's all the same structure. And that's
Right.
that's the point that it all ties it together. One of the greatest examples of that is the sue and settle model, where you'll have Democrats take over the White House and fill the agencies with all of their Democrat staffers, and they do that by taking them from the very nonprofits that are suing those agencies, putting those people in as employees of the agency, so that these nonprofits will sue the agency for whatever environmentally crazy reason, and instead of fighting it, they'll just settle because they're both on the same side. It's not an adversarial legal proceeding anymore, as our system is supposed to be set up.
Well, I mean, it's the cultural fraud is probably the best way to look at this, because I mean, even our
Right.
next story that we were going to talk about is the amount of flags that the GSA has for government contractors. In that, to be honest with you, so they're claiming, what's the number on this? They're claiming $13 billion in suspected contract fraud.
$13 billion.
Yeah, $13 billion. But to be honest with you, I think it's way higher than that. Way
Yeah.
higher than that. I mean, it's significantly higher than that. In fact, there's a specific part in government contracts that people don't talk about. This is something that James O'Keefe discussed, but it's something that people who understand and know how government contracts work have known about this problem for a long time. But James O'Keefe broke it out into the open and made it a big public thing about, I don't know, 6 to 7 months ago, when he had the person show that the pass-through companies, where they use minorities that own a company, and then they
Right.
they sublet it out. So because of the '08 program, or 8, maybe that's, what is it? Is it OA? I think it's OA or '08 program, that is designed so if you're a minority, you get a point system. So if you're like an Alaskan slope Eskimo or something like that, you're almost guaranteed to get a contract if you apply for
Sure.
it from the government. And that's something
Yeah.
that's existed for a long time. But all of those sublet, all they do is they just siphon money out of the contracts. They don't actually do any work. They take the contract and then they sublet the contract out from them to companies that actually do the work, but they make sure they win the contract by applying for it because they're minorities of some kind. And that's a problem that's existed, and that's 15% of every federal contractor that does that? I mean, there's hundreds of contracts that are done like that. There's thousands of contracts that are done like that, and that's all fraud in my eyes. They're not doing any work.
No, let me go ahead and read this report from the General Services Administration, because this is really something, man. So the headline is GSA uncovers record-setting $13 billion in suspected procurement fraud in collaboration with White House task force to eliminate fraud. This is as of 2 days ago. This was a press release, August 25th. Today, the U.S. GSA is announcing it has uncovered more than $13 billion in suspected fraud by federal contractors since March 2026.
Oh.
So in 5 months, $13 billion in fraudulent contracts.
That changes the whole report. I didn't realize since March. That's
right.
Okay. Wow. Okay, well that makes that makes me think that they actually are looking at the right places. Then that's not surprising. I mean, this is
the task force is set up properly. It sounds like.
Oh my goodness, I didn't read that far into it. I just saw the report and figured it was definitely worth covering because I thought it was higher than that. So it is higher than that, really.
Oh
that just means that just since March they found it. I mean, this is what we're talking about. When they say that there's possibly $500 billion worth of fraud, I don't doubt it at all. I don't doubt it at all.
Not only do I not doubt it, I think that might be conservative.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, really, if you look at the amount of fraudulent activities that happen, I mean, we now know without question that we have representatives of Congress that are fraudulent. We've got representatives' families that are involved in fraudulent programs. Sure. We've got representatives that are being directly arrested for these things. We know this is happening. If you're in Congress and you're willing to do this and get away with it, how do you think the smart ones are doing? That's what I always think about. Like, the people that we're catching right now are the dumb ones, the ones that are obviously doing things, right? I mean, these are the ones that the Ilhan Omars, the people that are doing the feeding our future stuff. Those are the fraudsters that the reason they got away with it is because no one was looking. That's the reason they got away with this stuff. But what about
the people were actually being encouraged to do so?
Right. But what about the people that are really smart, good fraudsters that know what they're doing and know how to get around things? Those people have probably been stealing billions of dollars for years, and years and years, and they haven't even got anywhere close to catching them. So, the problem is that, smart fraudsters know how to keep themselves in the shadows and not be out in the public, and no one pays any attention to what they're doing. They do small amounts here and there and stuff like that. But the reality is, it's gotten so bad that people that are elected to state officials and actual people that actually have real public profiles are being arrested for this stuff. Now it's catching everybody. I mean, that's how you can tell it's out of control when everybody's doing it. I mean, what did they say about the market? Is the worst time to buy into the market is when everybody's doing it. If everybody's telling you buy this, don't buy it. Then that's the worst time. If every consumer in the country is buying a stock, then that's the time to stop buying, right? I mean, I think this is the same sort of scenario we're running into in the world fraud market. The world fraud market of the U.S. government. Everybody and their brother was defrauding the U.S. government, so now everybody's getting caught. I mean, I think that's right. Probably where we're at.
So that's why we live in a low trust society now, as the fraud task force has pointed out. And we've got another story here from our own Beth Brelia, our senior political writer here at Restoration News, about Minnesota refusing to investigate fraud for years. And we'll get into that in a second. But the point I want to make about that is that this has to be part of every electoral messaging. Every campaign should make it front and center what they're going to do about the fraud being perpetrated on the tax money that we agree to send to the federal government and the state governments, by the way. This is such a big deal, and it's such a brazen theft of everything that we send them, that this has to be part of the election messaging going forward, especially for Republicans. We know the Democrats are just going to scream racism every time we say there's fraud going on. But this story by Beth for Restoration News is really incredible because 4 men recently pleaded guilty to defrauding the state's housing stabilization services program out of around $2.2 million. The men, all from the Twin Cities, started Brilliant Minds Services LLC. Not exactly making your point about the dumb ones.
Did they spell it correctly? Was it spelled properly? Is it Learington?
Well, there's no punctuation, but they did actually spell it correctly this time.
Okay, yes. Well that's a first. I mean that's good then. At least they spelled it right.
Good. Yeah. So the point of this article, though, is that they didn't have to do anything to prove that they were a Medicaid provider program provider in order to get approved. So program providers only had to be 18 years old, fill out some paperwork through the Minnesota Department of Human Services, pass a background check, watch about 5 hours of training videos, and presto, you now qualify to assist a homeless mentally ill person in crisis find a home. No medical license or social work training needed.
Oh my God. So that ties into
it's everything you've been investigating.
It is. That is everything I've been. That tells you everything. That's the same problem. So this is what we've said when we started really looking at this. When we realized how big the issue was back in months ago, when we first started looking and we first started taking a look at this, is that no one was checking who these people were, and they were just getting all sorts of money anyway. What was happening? Right. Why is that happening? Well, it turns out that it's designed like that. They don't care who gets it. They don't care who has access to it, which also tells you something else.
Or it's deliberate.
Well, yeah, or it's deliberate. Which, to be honest with you, at this point, I think we could say it is deliberate. But just say that it isn't deliberate. For argument's sake, say that it isn't deliberate. Right? It doesn't matter, because even if it's not deliberate, it just opens the door to this stuff. I mean, this is when they're refusing to investigate fraud for years. Well, we know that for a fact. Okay, we know that for a fact, because we already know that if you go back and look, I mean, just the report I did, what was the last article that I did, where they removed, 18,000 people from the Medicaid provider rolls? They hadn't checked it. They had never done it. The only reason they even did remove those people is because the federal government said, we're going to take all the money. You either look or we're going to take all of the money.
Voter rolls.
Yeah. Yeah. Now do voter rolls. That would be amazing. Well, I mean, now staying on Minnesota for the voter rolls, you saw the James O'Keefe report that they just did recently, right? Yeah. Where they went in and they proved that they didn't need anything. They had Cam Higbee put on a burqa and show up and vote. I mean, this is not a joke. And you can,
the state law in Minnesota is you can vouch for as many as 8 other voters and get them voter cards without any ID or documentation. So I can say all 8 of my other family members that also came over on the boat with me are also eligible voters.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy stuff. I mean, the fact that we're looking at this and the answer is that it's deliberate, 1, it's grift, 2. But the other problem is that the refusal to investigate just makes it all, to me, that just proves that this is all intentional, that they're using this as a means to buy voters, which is something we've said for a long time. I mean, it's pretty obvious that that's what's going on. And if this is the case, that they have no intent of looking at these people and you don't have to do anything to prove who you are as a provider, well, we know that's the case. We already looked at the home health care stuff. The home health care stuff, there is no real checks. They had, what was it they claimed? We found their electronic verification. And it was like, if you take a picture in the same room using this app with the person you're supposedly providing for, this counts. We were like, what? I mean, how does that work? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. But that's what their electronic verification. Which, with the funny part about that electronic verification, if you remember, Jeff, they didn't even want to do that. They fought that tooth and nail. They refused to implement it for almost 8 months. I mean, they claimed that they couldn't do it. It was impossible. There was no way we could have that sort of system set up. And when they finally do implement it, it does nothing. So this is just another layer on that. It's just a whole other layer on top of it.
I want to share this one detail from Beth's story with you, because you're going to love this part. According to the indictment, each man pocketed between $300,000 and $400,000 from Brilliant Minds. They all had access to the same bank account, shared a platinum American Express credit card, and racked up almost $500,000 charges on, quote, lifestyle purchases, unquote.
Lifestyle purchases. See, this is, oh my goodness. What classifies as a lifestyle purchase? Is that like, is that, well, actually we know what it is. It's the Range Rovers we see parked out front of each one of the
maybe strip clubs.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, I mean, it should infuriate. We laugh about it now because it's so absurd, but the reality is that it should make everybody furious. I mean, this is hardworking Americans struggle to get by on a regular basis. They struggle to get good jobs. They struggle to make payments. They struggle to do all sorts of things. But apparently, if you just come over here just off the boat, you could set up any kind of service you want, and the government will pay for it and give you millions of dollars. I mean, that's right. We even know from one of the first reports we did when we were in Michigan that one of these people, they didn't do anything at all. The building wasn't even there. The building was a demolished building, and they charged millions of dollars through it. I mean,
your picture of that is great. It's just a pile of rubble.
Yeah, it's a pile of trash. And the reason it was a pile of garbage like that is, and I talked to the people who were in the demo crew, it's because the entire building is full of asbestos. It's been vacant for decades because of the asbestos in it, and that's why it was still being torn down. Is because they kept running out of money while trying to destroy it because of the asbestos infestation in it. I mean, it's just what are we doing? I mean, that's the craziest.
This goes back to my previous point, though. Elections really do have consequences, and this is such a this is a crisis for our nation, that we're losing so much money that, I mean, it's way more than anything we're spending on the military or legitimate expenditures. We're losing so much money to fraud that it's actually destroying our fiscal health. And Beth makes the great point here in this article that, only after Donald Trump's administration started looking for fraud did Minnesota decide to address the problem by ending the HHS program. But Biden was asleep at the switch, or worse, his staff was encouraging these people, or he was cutting the oversight staff while encouraging the state officials to shovel as much money out the door as they could.
Well, the Biden administration, we talked about this. I think I talked about this early in the investigation that we were doing. The Biden administration, they made it their mission to increase the home health care payments, right? They made it so that everybody, they claimed that home health care people were mostly minority women that were in these programs. So they needed to make sure that they got paid more. Well, okay. But the problem is that none of those people do anything, and they still got paid. I mean, I think we figured out that it went from being, they were making something along. This is when we were looking at the nursing home stuff. The originally is some of these people that were doing the home health care, they could get $10,000-$15,000 a year, which is, for helping taking care of your parents. Maybe that does help you. Then you can work a part-time job instead of working full-time, blah, blah, blah. But now I think it ended up being that they now make $80,000 to $90,000 a year. That's more than the median income for most Americans. And this is to take care of mom at home. I mean, this is insane stuff. And now we've now seen from the Oz investigations in New York and everywhere else that these people, everybody does it. I mean, everybody's part of it. And there's billions of dollars that are being funneled out the door from that because there's no way to check it. There's no way to verify any of this stuff. And now Beth's report here is just another nail in the coffin on that. They were actually refusing to look at it in the first place.
Right. And that's why elections have consequences, because you need an adult in the room making decisions to provide the proper oversight so that we don't have our country stolen out from under us due to fiscal fraud. I can't overstate how important this issue is. The more we talk about this, the more I realize that we stand to lose the republic if we're not able to get control over the amount of money that's going out the door and the amount of money that's that belongs to the taxpayers, belongs to we the people, that is actually being stolen and deliberately so in many cases.
Well, I mean, this is if you want a scope of the problem, this actually plays perfectly into into one of the next topics we're going to talk about. This report out of Paragon. I think that just tells you the whole story, and I think that's worth mentioning here because according to this, more than half, or is it half? Nearly half of the expansion enrollees do not even meet the requirements to apply, but they're all part of it anyway.
This is part of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. So, yeah, it says using federal survey enrollment and spending data, the analysis estimates that 9.2 million expansion enrollees, aka Obamacare enrollees, 46% of the total were likely ineligible in 2024 under its central assumptions, up from 4.9 million in 2019. What's the difference between 2024 and 2019? Oh, yeah, the president. So improper enrollment costs the federal government an estimated $32.9 billion just in 2024.
I mean, the number there is what you look at, right? So it went from being 4.2 to 9.4. That is the intention of the Biden administration. Right. Give everybody access is what they were doing. Everybody anybody that they can possibly do, put them on there. They don't care. I mean, that's the question I always have is how they managed to get this through the system. If they don't meet the requirements, that they didn't meet the requirements, that means they were directed to ignore the requirements or try and reduce the requirements in the first place. That's the only way you can do that.
To that point, I just read this. I didn't read this earlier, but there's another $6.8 billion that went missing because they say states saved approximately $6.8 billion by misclassifying some traditional Medicaid beneficiaries into the expansion category, which receives a higher federal matching rate. So the states actually have an incentive to misclassify these things to get more money for the state budget because, of course, Medicaid expansion destroys the state budgets. We know this.
Right. So that's why they did it. So they get more matching requirements out of it. That's amazing.
Right. So whether or not these people are actual new enrollees, they classify them as that and get more money. And so the state, and it's not just, Somali pirates in Minneapolis that are defrauding the federal government. It's, Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul and those
that
types.
Tells you right there that statistic right there tells you why the budget is so high for Medicaid in those states then, because that's why they've done it like that. They've done it just like that so that they increased it so they get higher matching. So that's why all of these people in those states, I bet you if we go and look, I guarantee you that the expansion program was changed. The requirements were changed in New York and California. I bet you they were. I bet you they were changed.
100%. Yeah.
Reduced.
But we warned about this at the time when Obamacare was being debated before it even passed. We said that the Medicaid expansion is going to put so many mandates on the state budgets that it's going to blow them out and dominate everything, and they're not going to be able to be bailed out.
Well, I mean, this is the deal. If you go look at state budgets now, Medicaid is almost always a significantly higher portion of the budget than anything else is. It always in almost every single state. I know in Ohio, I think this normal state budget's something like $6 or $7 billion, but with Medicaid, it's over 15. So it tells you right there. That's where all of the money is. The money is being funneled out the door through Medicaid, and that's why the expansion programs. But I'm not surprised by this. That nearly half of them don't even meet the requirements. Well, maybe they don't need to meet the requirements if the states want them there in the first place. But that tells you that goes to the grift then. That it just expands the cultural fraud problem. They know, okay, well, we get more money from the federal government. If we give them more, if we ask for more in these programs, we get more. So we just, stack the money in that section. And that's how it goes. And this is why the amount of money that our government, and this is a nearly unsolvable problem at this point, but the amount of money that we spend as a government into our own economy is a absolutely terrible thing. The amount of money we pump into every single sector. I mean, the one way that I have always looked at this is watching this during the pandemic while the economy was reeling and they were shutting businesses down. The one group of businesses that wasn't struggling, medical insurance and medical industry. All of those industries were building new buildings.
They're essential industries, right? So everybody was still able to go to the office.
That's right. Well, not only that, though, but they were all making money because we were watching them build buildings. Every single, like around me, I was watching new buildings go up every left and right in the areas surrounding hospitals and medical industry areas. You're watching them build new buildings while everybody else is stuck at home and their businesses are shuttering. I mean, this is the companies that were making the most money, and you can always go look at I think the medical insurance is the best one. You can see their stock prices, how far they went up directly as a result of Medicaid, and
that's why they lobbied in favor of Obamacare, right? Is they knew that they would get 40 million brand new customers for their products. So of course they didn't care about the economic efficiencies or lack thereof. They were just looking at the raw numbers like, well, we'll figure this out later, but we're going to get ourselves millions of new customers that wouldn't have bought health insurance before.
Yep. That's exactly right. They would have never had insurance before. And what we'll do to cover that, and to cover all these people that shouldn't have had insurance and can't afford insurance, is we'll charge all of our existing customers, triple the rates, which actually has turned out to be far more than triple the rates because now everybody is aware that, from and
then they have to ration care, and you lose your doctor, you lose your clinic. Doctors can't actually be single practitioner offices anymore. They have to be employees of a network just because the overhead doesn't make sense anymore.
Well, the liability insurance is too much for them now. The
That too.
liability insurance for doctors has killed private practices. The
Right.
funny thing about this is something that anybody that was paying attention, it kind of predicted this. I remember my dad telling me about it 15 years ago at this point. Just saying, well, what's really going to happen is that smart and good doctors, what they'll end up doing is they're not going to even have practices. They'll just operate as a private practitioner, and the people will hire them and give them $60,000 a year to be their private practitioner for their families and their extended relatives. And that's happened. Now there's these people
that's called direct primary care. I belong to a direct primary care clinic where you pay I think it's $150 a month as a membership, and you can have as many appointments as you want, as long as the doctor has time to see you, you know, that whole thing. So but the typical doctor's practice, you're in and out in 7 minutes. The doctor will see you for 7 minutes, but then they have to move on because in order to make money, they have to see a certain number of patients every single day. And if they don't hit that number, they don't actually make a profit.
Yep. And the reality is that because of this, it's killed the way that normal private practice even operates. I mean, people don't have them anymore. It's amazing that this is what has been the result of it. But it's predictable when you take out the competition, because now all of these insurance companies are the ones that run everything. Everybody has health insurance, and you only are allowed to be part of like 3 networks, and you've got to pay $800 a month to be part of any insurance network, even though it does almost nothing for you. It does essentially nothing for you. I mean, the way that I look at it is that it gets worse every 3 years, and it costs more. I mean, that's the way, and it's been like that.
It's true. That's irrefutable.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that since Obamacare passed. It's been getting worse every
and the left
year.
blames that on the insurance companies, and then Luigi Mangione becomes a folk hero for murdering a healthcare CEO.
I mean, that's the radical left. Doesn't matter what you do, because the intent I always said that the intent of Obamacare was to bring in the single payer. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to bring 100%. It in single payer and roll it in any way that they can. And now they've made health and care so unusable, essentially. I mean, it really is unusable for most people. Yeah. But let alone what it costs private businesses. I think in private businesses, it's amazing because, an employee that's a full-time employee that makes $50,000 a year, well, they don't really make $50,000 a year, because that person, just to be part of the company, usually has to have full-time health insurance, and that costs the company $50,000 to $60,000 a year just to cover that one person and their family. So they're making $100,000 a year, but they don't see that money. They don't see that. Imagine if that employee, instead of having to provide them health insurance, you could just give them $100,000 raise. I think they might be happier with that.
Yeah, never mind that. What are they bringing home on their paycheck? It's 60% of the 50,000, because they're paying taxes on that too, right? So, or 70%, whatever it is. So if you made it so that people were just given the money and told you have to pay the taxes yourself and you have to buy the health insurance, they're going to make those choices, and they're going to be like, oh my God, I got to pay how much in taxes? Maybe we should reconsider this tax thing. Maybe we should make higher demands of what we get for our tax money, or not send so much of it to the government. But you never see that, because who looks at their pay stubs? Even
if you do look at your pay stubs, though, even if you do look at your pay stubs right now, you wouldn't notice it, because you're not the one that's paying the majority of it. Your employer is. Your employer's paying that health insurance, so you wouldn't even see that. So you got to explain it to the people in the way that, imagine if I didn't have to provide you health insurance to anybody in this company. Say you've got a company of 60 employees. If I didn't have to provide all of you health insurance, by law, not have to provide you guys health insurance, I could give each of you a $70,000 raise. Imagine what the response by those people would be. Imagine that. I mean, even their production employees that make $50,000 a year, telling them, hey, instead of making $50,000, you could make $110,000 working the same job you have right now if I didn't have to provide everybody in the company health insurance. That's
right.
I mean,
or you could choose not to have health insurance if you're young and healthy and you don't think you're going to need it, right?
That's right. I mean, at this point now, people like me in my scenario, health insurance is almost useless. I mean, what do I use it for? Right? I'm in my 30s. I'm in great health. What exactly do I use insurance for? Almost nothing. So, the only reason it's there is in case I get hit by a bus. I mean, that's it. But you can't buy just in case I get hit by a bus insurance. You have to buy the minimum.
Well, you used to be able to.
Insurance. Yeah, well, you can't anymore. You think
Yeah.
you can get accident insurance, but that's pretty much it. But that's almost nothing. I mean, the
But
deal is,
but if you're, in your example, let's even just say it's a $50,000 a year wage job and $30,000 for health insurance. If you just gave that person that chunk of $30,000, gave them $80,000 instead of $50,000, and they got hit by a bus, they'd have $30,000 to pay for the damages.
that's right. Exactly right. I mean, they'd be able to pay out of
You
pocket.
wouldn't even need insurance.
Which is exactly what most, I guarantee that most people in my scenario where you've got your own business and doing this, what's the purpose of having insurance, really? I mean, like,
Right.
what does it do for you? It doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, just pay out of pocket for everything. It's better.
Yep.
It's cheaper.
Yep.
I mean, the only real thing you have to worry about is the low risk scenario stuff where, you develop cancer or something when you're young. But outside of that, I mean, what's the purpose of having it? It doesn't really serve any purpose. It just feeds into the insurance world, and you just, oh my goodness, everybody has to have insurance now. It's amazing how much money we've given these people. But you mentioned Luigi Mangione, and I think that actually kind of ties into something that we can talk about for our last story here. So the exclusive that came out yesterday, that was the bomb that dropped. It's not really directly related to fraud, but it kind of is because of the
it's a culture of fraud situation, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, this State Department revealed that an international technology collective, now under a U.S. global terrorism designation, provided services to overseas terrorist groups and violent far-left agitators, causing chaos in American cities, according to a copy obtained by Fox News Digital. So, the money quote from Marco Rubio, Secretary of State: far-left terrorism poses a profound threat to the United States and the broader West. Today, the United States sanctioned Autistici/Inventati, a major far-left tech collective whose services are used by the most active and violent Antifa cells in the United States and across the world. They also have ties to Hamas and other, Iran and China, but they're based in Italy, and they're used by the far-left extremists to do things like encrypted communications and video chats and secure donation links and all that stuff where it can't be traced. And so the State Department has now uncovered, and this is just one node, right? There are likely dozens of other nodes across the world that are coordinating far left violent Antifa-like protests in the United States. And we know this already. We've seen this reported in the news over the last couple of years, that they're connected to things like the communist regime in Cuba and Hugo Chavez in Venezuela before we deposed him, and Iranian, the Republican Guard Corps of Iran. So we know that they are coordinating far left extremism with terrorism from across the globe, and now we're starting to unravel that package as well.
Well, I mean, this goes all the way into the violent protests that have happened in the United States for the past 10 plus years at this point that no one has done anything about. I mean, this is something that everyone has noticed this summer specifically, that there's been significantly less violent protests everywhere. I wonder why that is. Anyone notice that? It seems like there's a lot less of that happening this time. Usually there was riots every week, and there's riots in multiple major cities all at the same time, all coordinated. It was weird how they all had signs. It was, where did that all come from?
We got midterms coming up, and Trump is still president. Where are all the protests?
That's right. Where are all the protests? It seems to me that they can only funnel money every couple months. Now they have, every few months they've got something that they do. But it's obvious to me that they're taking these people out, because otherwise you'd see these protests all over the place again. I tell you, everybody hates Trump right now, right? Everyone, he's the worst president of all time. Everyone despises him, right?
He's a dictator.
He's the fascist, terrible dictator. Where are the protests at? Well, I think it turns out that when you take the money out of the scenario, a lot of people don't show up. I mean, the Portland Antifa that was directly that they're talking about in here, where they're directly connecting them to this, we know that is one of the most well-funded organizations, and they've been part of doing this stuff for over a decade at this point. Yeah. They've been doing far left. I mean, it is domestic terrorism what they do when you burn buildings and scare people and you run it like a mob, essentially. I mean, there's no other description that makes sense for that, and they've been doing this for over a decade, and no one's done anything about it. So If we're finally going to start stepping in and doing that, I think that's a huge step in the right direction. Let alone the fact that we've got the SPLC stuff that happened. We didn't even mention that, did we? We haven't even talked about that. Did you see that the SPLC director that was supposed to that was didn't show up for court? Did you see that?
Oh no, I didn't see that. No, I knew the CFO got arrested or indicted.
Yeah, well, apparently the ringleader of it. There was a New York Post article about this a couple days ago where she didn't even show up for court. So she didn't even show up. Yeah. I mean, this is things are happening, and everyone's
is she absconding to a non-extradition country, or is she going Jason Arday, or what is she doing?
I don't know. I mean, I saw the report. I haven't looked to see where exactly she thinks she's going to hide from the U.S. government, seeing how they're arresting people in every other country right now. I'm not sure where she intends to run to. Yeah, I mean, we
don't need extradition if we can go get them ourselves, right?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening right now. We're going to pick them up ourselves. The FBI has been on this stuff, so I'm not really sure where she intends to hide. But at this point, I think we're seeing a massive change in the way that we're approaching not only left-wing terrorism but funding for this stuff, which is all wrapped up in the fraud question. Every bit of it's wrapped up in the fraud question. So there's only going to continue to get more interesting. But it is the Trump effect, right? It is the 800-pound orange gorilla in the room that is driving all of this, and it wouldn't be happening if it weren't for such an audacious personality saying, "This is crap. This is BS. Nobody believes you. Why are we still paying for all this crap?" That's right. That's right. Well, I'm sure it's going to get only more interesting as we get closer to the election. So we will get to see more of this stuff get wrapped up, and maybe we'll actually get to see Ilhan Omar deported from Congress. That would be that is just a cherry on the top if we get that. Watching her get brought out in handcuffs into a waiting federal police vehicle. Yeah, that's music right there. That's a work of art. It's Da Vinci if we can get it. But we'll see. We'll see if we actually manage to get that. But obviously, we've got a lot more to go before we even get through the rest of this year. So, Jeff, it has been a good episode today, and it's always good to see you. So we will be back next week, Thursday, 1 p.m. for more of Fraud Watchers. And keep an eye out, guys. We've got a lot of stuff coming here. And then here and very shortly, there's going to be a big announcement coming out from us. And there's going to be a whole lot more coming, and a huge project is finally about to get there. So it's been a lot of work. The stuff that we're working on, you guys are going to be, it's going to blow people's minds. This thing that we're going to put out is, I mean, it's way bigger than we ever anticipated it actually being. And it's going to be something that nobody's ever seen before. Yeah, well, I'm excited for it. It's been a long time coming, and now that we've gotten this far, so looking forward to it. So, guys, next week at 1 p.m. Thursday, we will be back. I'm Walter Kurt. This is Jeff Reynolds. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next time.